Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It really does depend on where you're listening to me from around the world. This is Friday, the 13th of September 2024, and this is JFI Radio Live. And this is my second live since launching last week. And I want to really say a huge thank you to everyone that gave me such fantastic feedback and such lovely comments from that first show. So, if you're new to JFI Radio Live, what can you expect from this broadcast? What is it all about? Well, each week I'm going to be reporting on some very carefully curated news items that I've picked up from around the globe. And everything that I curate is about the areas that I've been working in during the last few decades. So things like business training and learning I've been involved in right from the very start. And because I have a great passion and interest, there's going to be things around AI learning tech as well. Now, my background is human resources, so expect a few news items about HR. And also because I am a pracademic. I'll tell you about that in a moment. There'll be things around open education. And of course, there has to be something about learning, change, quality improvement, and business excellence. Now, being a pracademic, I mentioned that a moment ago, that means I've got one foot in academia and the other foot in industry. And I've been really lucky over my working career to have really good experience from both. And it's that mix of experience, one foot in industry and the other foot in higher education and academia, that allows me, when I am teaching master students, and that might be in person, that might be online. I'm starting again in about three weeks' time. I'm virtually travelling to North Macedonia. It's a shame, I wouldn't mind physically travelling there, but I'm virtually travelling to North Macedonia to teach on a master's programme in event management and tourism. And so that will be really, really interesting. And so being able to combine the two things, I bring some of the theory, which is great because it gives you the underpinning, but I also bring some of the experience and some real life stories of where that theory came to life. So it's great fun. It's great fun. Now, these live broadcasts are really, they're ramblings. They're ramblings from me. They're a chance for me to share with you some insights that I've had over the last week, and so bring that in a live broadcast. There's the global news roundup, which is now a very permanent regular feature each week, right in the middle of the live broadcast. And the sources that I've got are fantastic because I've really scoured the entire world. The academic part of the pracademic bit of me quite likes doing desktop research. So I have got a breadth of information from lots of really lovely sources, including my wonderful global network of people. And those people point me to different directions in terms of useful information. And many of those people happen to come from academia as well. So I know that the sources that they use, that they then pass on to me, are valid, they're credible. But as ever, with anything to do with news, whether it's business news of the kind that I'm bringing to you in these JFI Radio Live broadcasts, or whether it's general news that you hear every day, it really is up to you to decide how much you like, how much you dislike, perhaps form your own opinions, and maybe, just maybe, you're going to want to share those opinions with me. So in the second half of the show, after the news report, you will get an opportunity, particularly if you're listening to me on YouTube or on my JFI Radio Facebook page. You can type into the comments, and as if by magic, the platform will pop up on the screen, and I'll see it. I'm looking down there. It'll appear in the ticker at the bottom and in that fixed part that you can see on the screen there. And I'll be able to see your comments, and I'll be able to respond to them. So you are able to get involved with me in the show, and I love that. I love the fact that you can be there live. Now, it is true to say this is starting at 9 a.m. UK time, and that isn't going to be good for all of you, because some of you halfway around the world are just going to bed, so good night. And some of you are in the middle of the day and you might be working, so there are always replays. And so what you can do, there you go. Oh no, that's the report one. Hold on. Now, so you see, I am my own producer and engineer. So when I look over here, I have to make sure that I can show you different items so you know where to find things. And yeah, what you've got on the ticker right at the bottom, if you go to my jfiradio.com website, what you can get are the links to the news reports, and you can also see the replays as well. And that's important. So if you are in bed and you're listening to this on the replay, hello. Maybe at some future point you might be awake and you can catch me live and get involved in the live action. All the links, as I said, are there. Now, because it's live, there are going to be bloopers. I might repeat myself. I might get one of the buttons wrong in terms of notifying you about things on that ticker at the bottom, etc. Listen, hey, that's the beauty of live, isn't it? Anyway, whatever. Thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Now, what's happened this week? Well, it has been hectic and also incredibly insightful. I am a glass half full sort of person. I'm always expecting that there's more to learn, there's more to see, and actually probably because of my background, I always see learning opportunities in almost everything that I do. We all do. I think the key thing is to make sure that you give yourself some time to recognize them. And that means just stopping in your tracks for a moment and reflecting, or having a reflective hour, or even if it's 10 minutes, it's something. And these live radio shows have forced me to stop and reflect upon my week. So this week, I said, has been really hectic, and I've been facilitating workshops. In fact, I've been doing it for almost 4 days, different workshops in each day. Now, facilitation is very different to training, and it's different to teaching as well. So, I mean, there are lots. I hope that some of what I'm going to ramble on about and share with you will really land incredibly well for you. Maybe you are a content creator, maybe you're an educator, maybe you're a trainer, maybe you're a business person that organizes training, learning and development in your organization. Whatever, but I hope that you will garner something from what I'm sharing with you. But facilitation, and I do all three. I mean, I do training, I do teaching, I do facilitation. And facilitation's different to the other two because its focus is ever so slightly different. You could say it's semantics, but it's ever so slightly different. With facilitation, I'm generally guiding groups of people, either in person or online, and I'm helping them have discussions, and we do some, overall collaborative learning, and we do it together. If I'm doing teaching or training, it is slightly different. With training, it's more vocational and skills development, and people are maybe gaining some practical information that they need in their job at that moment. If it's teaching and in education, it's maybe more knowledge transfer. Yes, a bit more conceptual, a bit more theoretical. It's about giving information. It's about explaining concepts. And it's not always passive, but some teaching and education can be passive, where the group are listening passively, they're making notes. With training, they're rolling their sleeves up and getting hands-on learning and practical learning. And with facilitation, those discussions, those activities are helping them to learn. Uh, the problem with facilitation is that it's quite flexible and doesn't always follow a structure. It has to go with the flow. It has to respond to the group and those dynamics. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because actually that's what I've been doing this week. With training, it's usually highly structured. You've got objectives and learning outcomes. And the same with teaching. That has to be structured. It has to follow a curriculum, but it does open debates up and free flow discussions. So let me come back to this facilitation that I've been doing. I was facilitating a topic that is so dear to my heart. I absolutely love this topic, and it's about presentation skills, and it's about having confidence when you are presenting. Now, for some people, standing up and presenting, or on a stage at a conference, or maybe in a meeting face to face in person, can be so anxiety inducing. I really get the nerves going. And don't for one moment believe that even someone like me who's been doing it for a long time doesn't get nervous in certain situations and with certain audiences. We all do. It's just it's not as crippling as it used to be. And for some people who are just starting out with this, it's crippling. It really is. I mean, you can feel the dryness in your mouth and the clamminess in your hands, and you can feel, and you suddenly think, I don't remember what it is I need to say, and where are my notes, and I can't find my notes, and so it goes on. So helping people get more confident with presenting is something that I love to do in a training session. And if the training is something that I've designed, then I'll design it in a way where there's lots of practical examples, and for them to get opportunities to practice as well. If I'm facilitating someone else's design, because for some clients that is the case, and I will follow what they're doing and bring a little teeny tiny bit of me into it as well. I won't change what someone else has designed, but I'll just bring a little bit of me into this. And sometimes when you're facilitating, as I said before, you've got some structure, but you need to respond and adapt to different group dynamics. It's really important. And I had to do that this week. And just when I thought that I had almost nothing left to learn about this particular topic, and that sounds arrogant. It's not meant to. It just means that after maybe a number of decades, some things just have a different name to them, but they come round and round. But what I found myself in was a situation where I had to pull upon all of my experience. And I'm sharing this story with you because just in case some of you ever find yourselves in this situation, if you happen to be delivering anything with a group, live or otherwise, it might just come to mind as the importance. Now, a lot of people and a lot of organizations are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And inclusion in learning and training is really, really important, and making sure that everybody feels involved, engaged, and feels part of it, feels like you're talking to them. Well, I had a mixed audience a couple of days ago, and a mix of abilities, and this was all online in MS Teams. Okay, now I have a love-hate relationship with MS Teams. I use it 2 to 3 times a week for my clients every single week. The setup is exactly the same, and it behaves differently each and every time. So I know it's not me, it's them. Anyway, so we're on Teams, and as we're doing the introduction at the beginning, etc., you know, the usual thing, sort of like, what's your name and why are you here? That kind of thing. You know it, you've been there. I had one learner who was completely blind. So she had absolutely no sight at all. She had two artificial eyes. So it wasn't like she was partially sighted, she was completely blind. And in all of my years of training and educating and presenting, I've had people who have had certain learning challenges, whether that is mobility, whether it's hearing, whether it's partial sight loss. But I don't think in all my years I've ever had anybody that was totally blind and totally blind online, where the need to have sight of what was going on in the slides was important. So right from the beginning, I found myself thinking, right, I need to be really clever here. I need to make sure that this individual, this learner, feels that they're not getting shortchanged with any of the material that's going on. And so I did ask, has anything, what challenges, what do you need in terms of this? And unfortunately, in this particular case, the lovely lady said, normally I would get the material in advance and I'd put it through my screen reader, but nothing's come through. So I knew that not only was she actually blind, but she had had no prior information that she could actually relate to other than the instructions of what to do, and she'd had prepared her sample presentation. So it raised for me a number of things as we went through, and I just want to share some of this with you because I think it's really important to understand. First and foremost, it is vital that you send learning material and slide decks like a PowerPoint in advance, not a PDF, and I'll explain why. With a PDF, the screen readers cannot easily pick up the graphics with a PowerPoint presentation. And if you set the PowerPoint presentation up correctly, which I'll tell you in a moment, then it can. And it can enable someone who either has sight difficulties or completely blind to put their PowerPoint through the screen reader, and it can describe things. But it can only do that if you set it up correctly. So when you're setting up PowerPoint and you sometimes use graphics and visuals, whether they are AI generated or whether you've used them from a royalty-free approved source, because you mustn't just take things off an internet and use them. You must have a source, you must have attribution, you need to put in an alt description on the graphics, otherwise it's next to worthless. Now, in this case, nothing had been sent out. So as a facilitator, I had to adopt the role of screen reader. And I had to do it in a way that didn't slow everything down to make it too much for everyone else, because this was a mixed group. So it was very interesting. Every time a graphic came up, whether that was a chart, whether it was maybe an image of something, I was describing it. And the irony is, because it was presentation skills, there were a lot of images and we were talking about, well, does this look better or does that look better? And the people who could see could make a judgment call about the differences. The one lady who couldn't see, I was acting as a screen reader to help describe what was there so she could make a decision. She was, by the way, absolutely superb, brilliant, and was able to respond to me being the screen reader and giving the answers as eloquently as absolutely everybody else. I mean, my respect for her just grew and grew and grew. The other thing is, when you're in MS Teams and you're online, there is a functionality that's called room allocation, where you can say, well, I've got 10 people in the room, please set up 5 rooms, and it'll randomly put 2 people in each room. Some people don't use that and they do it manually, and some people put notes in the chat bar. Remember, if someone has partial sight or is completely blind, they won't be able to read what's in the chat. So I was using the automated room allocation. She was able, through her keyboard, to be able to locate where to press the buttons when it pops up and says join this room. She could. She left. She went, came back. We didn't do too much of that, in truth. We only did it once because it was really, really difficult. And as the group was quite small, we were able to stay together a lot of the time. But if you are doing room allocation and you're facilitating this kind of case, then yes, you do need to be conscious about how someone is going to pick up the cues on the screen. The other thing is some key points. If you're going to get material, send it out early. Now, I know some trainers and some organisations don't like to send their material out for fear someone else is going to pinch it. But, you know, if we want to have inclusion, then we really need to make sure that inclusion means making things easy to understand and learn for everyone. So digital material should be screen reader compatible. You should press the accessibility on PowerPoint. There is, if you go to the top of the page in PowerPoint, when you're doing a PowerPoint and you press the ribbon at the top and you've got the word review, under review is third from the left, it's check of accessibility, and that will tell you where you're not accessible, things you need to change in the material, etc. And usually it's about providing text descriptions for images and charts, and making sure that if you are going to do PDFs, make sure they're properly structured so that they're accessible documents as well. Otherwise they're completely useless to the person that's receiving it. And if you can't do any of that, think about your own voice and the way that you're describing things and the way that you can make things interesting. That's not just for people who maybe have sight difficulties. It's for everyone, because if you sound interesting, you're not then just reading from a screen all the time. And narrate actions that you want people to do. So I was always saying, I'm now opening the next slide. I have to say the biggest challenge was the visuals and getting people to look and say, well, which visual looks better? So the time that I had to take to describe the visual on the left is called A, and it represents this. And the visual on the right is B, and it represents that. So if you're building in any kind of screen reader capability because you recognize that you need to because of the audience and you've been flexible enough, that will take extra time, which means that you might not get through all of your content. So there's an awful lot to think about, particularly, the screen reader thing is quite interesting. Just let's say you do send information out in advance and the individual has put it through the screen reader and it's been read to them. If it's an entire day's training, they're not going to remember every bit. Now, here's the interesting thing that she told me. She said, I can't have, even if I had the material, she said, I can't have the screen reader on and listen to you at the same time. And you know what? I didn't realize that. It makes sense. Of course it makes sense. But I didn't think about it. So there you go. Anyway, listen, I hope you've enjoyed that little story. Now, I am not a PowerPoint expert. I don't know if I'm very, very competent, but I hate using the word expert. I hate people say I'm an expert in this, because the systems and the functionalities are changing all the time. If for any reason you want to get to grips with PowerPoint, can I recommend a good friend of mine to you? Her name is Shelley Fishel, and in the notes from today, I'm going to put her contact details. She is an MS Maestro, and she helps people understand Microsoft and all of its different functionalities, and I'm sure she could help you most definitely with anything that you want to know. Wow, that was an interesting start to the whole proceedings, wasn't it? Now, for those of you that were with me last week, you will know that we're halfway through the program, or a little bit over halfway through the program. So it's time for just one thing, and that is my global news roundup. Here it is. Enjoy.
You're listening to JFI Radio Live. Here's the latest training and learning news from around the globe.
From JFI Radio Newsroom, here are the latest global news headlines. North America. Stanford economist Nicholas Bloom in the US reveals that employees who work from home 2 days a week are just as productive, likely to get promoted, and far less prone to quit. In the largest study yet of working from home professionals, he found that hybrid work had zero effect on workers' productivity or career advancement and dramatically boosted retention rates. Results also showed that resignations fell by 33% amongst workers who shifted from working full-time in the office to a hybrid schedule. South America. Environmental education has gone from being something very niche to a central issue on the agenda in Latin America. From projects on coffee waste in Colombia to a Mexican school recycling water, teachers and students are driving success and a new awareness. As a world region, Latin America is one of the lowest investors in education, according to the World Bank data. The region's public spending averages for education have slumped to lows not seen in 20 years, leaving many teachers, especially in small schools, to manage environmental projects in their own localities. Europe and the UK. A report from Lena Rachel Andersen in Denmark for the Global Bildung Network highlights how Nordic countries should talk more about Bildung, stating that it's a valuable lens through which to question the state of the current education system. The over-reliance on performance, efficiency and improving grades across recent decades has come at a price, and the time is right now for the debate about education for life, Bildung, and the humanity and values on which Nordic countries have traditionally built their schools and education systems. A group of educators plan to attend an event in Gothenburg in Sweden on the 10th to 11th of October to discuss this further. Africa. The Association of Non-Governmental Organisations in the Gambia ran a 6-day capacity-building training event for 22 civil society organisations in Sindola, Kanilai. Funding came from the United Nations Population Fund in collaboration with the Network Against Gender-Based Violence and ActionAid International. Training covered monitoring and evaluation and report writing, aiming to reaffirm the important role of women in the prevention and resolution of conflicts and peace negotiation, enabling their full involvement in all efforts to maintain and promote peace and security. Asia. As China seeks to race ahead in humanoid robot development, its supply chains showcased cheaper and innovative parts at the World Robot Center in Beijing. Wison Technology in Shenzhen, known for its flexible robotic manipulators, doesn't depend on motors and reducers, transmission devices commonly used in robotics, but instead uses 3D printed plastics and relies on pneumatic artificial muscles to power its robots. This less expensive form of production allows it to price its flexible arms at about 1/10 that of traditional robotic arms. However, some executives warn the industry has yet to improve product reliability. The Middle East. In Dubai Knowledge Village, Zubin Jagpar, Senior Director and Business Group Developer at Microsoft SEMA, spoke about Microsoft's Fourth Work Trend Index, published in May 2024, explaining that from the research, 78% of AI users are now bringing their own AI tools to work. They looked at how AI will reshape work and the labour market, surveying 31,000 people across 31 countries, identifying labour and hiring trends from LinkedIn, and analysing trillions of Microsoft 365 productivity signals, as well as research with Fortune 500 customers. Australia and New Zealand. And finally, Australia's right to disconnect law means that Australian employees will have the right to ignore their bosses outside of working hours. The law, which passed earlier this year, protects employees who refuse to monitor, read or respond to contact from their employers outside of working hours. Similar laws giving employees the right to switch off their mobile devices are already in place in France, Germany and other countries in the European Union. That's been your Global Weekly News Roundup. Please come back and join me next week. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. You know what? Maybe there's something there for you to take away and turn your mobile off and not respond to things at the end of your working day. Controversial. Maybe we'll bring that up at a future radio show. So links to all the full news stories, as it says on the ticker at the bottom of the screen there, are available on my JFI radio website. So that's jfiradio.com. Follow the links to replay and links, and you will get everything there, and you can follow up on any news item that you're particularly interested in. Now, in this second part of the broadcast, you can talk to me. Use the chat, use the comment function in YouTube or in the JFI Radio Facebook page if you're listening from there. If you're listening on LinkedIn, the platform hasn't yet sorted out its live synchronization with broadcasting and comments. I'm sure they will soon, but for now, if you're on YouTube, talk to me. I will keep an eye open on the screen here and have a look and make sure. Let's look under the live chat. Nothing there yet. That might mean that nobody's listening. It might mean that you're listening and you don't have anything to say, comment or ask at the moment. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. So I want to pick up something that you heard in the news, and it actually relates to that item about Lena Rachel Anderson and the Global Bildung Network. And in this particular case, I want to talk to you about the autumn equinox. So Global Equinox Day is on September the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, depending about where you are in the world. And Lena runs the Global Bildung Network, and there's a lot of association between the equinox, the two equinox points, the spring one and the autumn one. In the spring one, we tend to celebrate European Bildung Day, and on the autumn one, the Global Equinox Day, the network tends to celebrate that online, and it's really interesting event. It's a very long event. It's an entire 17 hours, but my goodness, it is so interesting and exciting to promote this kind of holistic education and personal development approach, which she has been doing for years. And I've only really been involved with her for about a year. I was over in Rotterdam with her for the European Bildung Network, and I am involved again this time for this celebration of the autumnal equinox, which symbolizes balance and global unity. Now, if you've not heard of Bildung before, it's a German concept, and it relates to the process of holistic, personal, cultural and social maturation, the way that we work together, the way that we collaborate together to understand and respect each other. It's a fabulous concept, and it has evolved considerably over the decades. Now, if you want to get some real insight into this, pop over to jfiradio.com and look at some of the past episodes. And if you click on the link, you can hear some of what went on in Rotterdam, some really good episode podcasts of describing what Bildung is, not just from me, but from many other speakers. So this Equinox Day, it's all about achieving a balance and harmony, and The equinox represents equal day and night, and Bildung seems to tie in very beautifully with this when it's looking at individual development and the impact citizens have on their society. Now, what Lena does is she organises a series of events and activities online on that date to promote the concept. And we also have the Global Bildung Manifesto, which you'll find at the Global Bildung Network website page. Links on my website. And there is also a brand new book that has been developed collaboratively with many different contributors called What It Means to Be Human. Oh, wow. In the light of everything that we're doing regarding generative AI and the way that it's used in education and in many walks of life now, how exciting to read a book about what it means to be human. Just go over there and check it out. It's what can we do better as humans? How can we be better humans now and in the future? So this day takes us around the world online, and we have discussions, we look at different transformational educational processes, we talk about stories from around the world. Now, I'm a facilitator at this 17-hour event, and I am going to be attending all of it in addition to facilitating my one part. So we start at 5 a.m. UK time over in Oceania. So our speakers are coming from New Zealand at the moment. Now, New Zealand's going to be really interesting because next year, oh my goodness, next year I am going to be able to say that I will have been working in country number 40. Yes, you did hear me right. 40. I'm heading over to New Zealand with ICDE. But no, I'm going to tell you about that in another program. So 5 a.m. Oceania, we're talking about Maori culture and the growing movement to redesign the economy of the Aotearoa in New Zealand. And it looks at well-being of their particular people and also covers some ideas about indigenous population cooperation. And there's a lot about learning what well-being economy could look like. 7 a.m. It's East Asia, and the Korean cooperative Hansalim has apparently 900,000 consumer members and 2,300 farmer members, and their mission is solidarity between consumers and food producers. And apparently, they're very successful at it. So we could hear some stories about why they're so successful, what makes them successful. 9 a.m. and we're off to Central Asia and look at how neighbourhoods can self-organise to solve their own local problems and create various sources of income, particularly for those who have none, and look at housing and what does it mean to be a good neighbour. That promises to be really interesting, and they all are. And at 11 a.m. we move to the Middle East. And they talk about Islam and the first 100 years of Islam, including madrasas, which produced an explosion of intellectual inquiry. And it relates very closely to Bildung and how that transformed the Middle East and permeated around the world. And there were speakers there from Lebanon and Azerbaijan. So we're carrying on around the world on that day, and 3 p.m. I am still going to be with them because you know what? At 3 p.m. it's my turn, and I'm facilitating Africa. And Africa, we're going to look at, for the economy to be sustainable, it has to bring people together, and it has to bring nature into context and into account. And it's the speakers are going to be talking about Ubuntu and what it entails and how communities allow individuals to be themselves, but also to be part of a collective and create a work economy. 5 p.m. in Europe, and we're focusing on how to rethink our global economic systems if we're going to cooperate better and solve our problems. and the focus is to create an economy in harmony with nature and cooperatives around Europe. So nearly the end of the 17 hours, 7 p.m., it is Latin America. So by the way, the timings I'm giving you are UK timings. You need to go to timeanddate.com to find out how those translate into your particular area, or better still, go to the website page, links in on my website in relation to this news, and you can get the workings of the different time zones then and try and attend as much as you can. So 7 p.m. UK time is Latin America, and our speakers are going to explore the uneven distribution of wealth and how that model is just not sustainable for the future. And finally, at 9 p.m., just as our eyes are closing, or certainly mine will be, but I'll still be there, we shift to North America and discuss what it means to be human. We talk about some of the things in the book and pick up some of the key issues about how we become better citizens. I can't think of a greater way, a better way to end that 17 hours, to look at what it is that humans can do that machines can't, and programs can't, and automation can't. And I have to tell you, this promises to be the most amazing online event. I've already said to you, I intend to be there for 17 hours. I'm not sure. Will I get any JFI radio listeners that will also be there for 17 hours? I'm really not altogether sure you will be, but try and dip in for as much as you can. I hope that you will join me. So I'm nearly coming to the end of this particular broadcast. I did mention about transformative learning, because Bildung is very much about transforming our learning process. And in education, in adult education, yes, it's an approach that really does focus on fundamental change and the way individuals perceive themselves and the world around them. And that just so links closely with the autumn equinox that I've been talking about, and also with Bildung. Do you know what? I think I'm going to leave a lot about transformative learning to one of my next weeks, so that I can bring that up again with you. If anybody wants to comment, now is the time to do so. I'm just looking at the live chat to see if anything is there, and maybe you are just so captivated with what I have been talking to you about. And also, if you've got any news, send me your news to studio@jfiradio.com. I would be so happy to receive it and maybe even feature some of it in a future program. Now, if you're interested in any of the other podcasts that I did before I started coming back live again, because remember, I did live 10 years ago and then I just started to do it all over again, you can find all of my back episodes on Spotify. There is the URL. The wonderful thing about the ticker is it comes round again. So as it comes round again, you'll be able to get the exact URL to go to JFI Radio back episodes, available since 2015. It is tinyurl.com/JFIR-Spotify. Okay, and of course, as ever, I would say to you, please do subscribe to me on my YouTube channel. And also be aware that I'm going to bring you information about business training, about learning, about change, about open education, quality improvement, business excellence. The list is endless. Please do write to me. And if you help and provide me with any exciting, reliable, innovative news in 2025, I'm going to start bringing people in live on screen, not just typing, but that one's for next year. Okay, we've come to the end. I really hope you've enjoyed this live broadcast as much as I have, and I hope that you come back and see me again soon. Let me pop this ticker up on the screen for you so that you know that the next broadcast is on the 20th of September. And if you are a trainer, facilitator, or academic tutor, please feel free to direct your learners to JFI Radio Live on YouTube and listen to the recordings. Please subscribe, of course. I'd love to get to that magic 100. And you can also use content from my Spotify channel. And you can use it to support your learning. Maybe get people to listen to the podcasts and then come into class and talk about some of the key learning points. Thank you so very much for listening again. I really look forward to talking to you same time, same place next week on Friday, the 20th of September at 9 a.m. UK time. And all it leaves for me to say is have a great weekend and bye for now. JFI Radio now.